Hi everybody, Andrew Cuneo here. Another new Streets of New Capenna deck tech. This time it's going to be an Esper Angels deck. This deck doesn't have too many new cards in it, but the new cards that it did get from Streets of New Capenna I think are pretty important in potentially pushing this archetype over the finish line to actually being a viable deck. So let's start with the most important addition. That's this card, Giada, the Font of Hope. So this is another 2-drop for the Angels deck, which the Angels deck was certainly lacking in 2-drops. 1 and a white for 2/2 Flying Vigilance, but most importantly, it has this ability that it can tap to add white mana to cast Angel spells, which those are only going to be your Angel creatures in this deck. And it also has this really weirdly worded ability. Each other Angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it for each Angel you already control. It's a very, very strangely worded ability, but I think it basically does what you expect it to do, where if you've got Giada in play and you play a second Angel, that Angel's going to come into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. And as you get more Angels into play, you're going to get more and more counters. It's kind of worded this way so that it's not a triggered ability when the Angels enter play, which is good for you, but if you're putting multiple Angels into play simultaneously, they're not going to see each other to get the additional counters from each other. So, like if I had one Giada in play and I spent 7 mana and I cast an Emeria's Call, I believe what's going to happen is you're going to wind up with 2 5/5 Angels, assuming your opponent doesn't kill the Giada in response to you casting Emeria's Call. As far as I know, there aren't really any other cards in the history of Magic that are worded exactly like this, so it's going to take some amount of playing with it to maybe figure out if there's some weird nuances to the wording. But this is definitely a very pushed card. It looks like a pretty strong card. I think that having a bunch of flying creatures in this format is pretty desirable. Probably the most popular deck is for kind of week 1 is going to be some sort of black-red or Jund deck that's looking to play a bunch of sack fodder on the ground and sack it to make an Ob Nixilis. So if you can just play some evasive creatures to start the game, you'll be able to pressure their Ob Nixilises, which is really going to kind of counteract what their deck is hoping to accomplish. So that's the main appeal of this deck. Filling the deck out, we've got 4 Youthful Valkyries. That's kind of a mainstay of any Angel deck. If you've ever played an Angel deck in Historic, I'm sure you had 4 of these in your deck. Some removal spells, some Vanishing Verses, and 1 Blood Chief's Thirst. I like kind of mixing the removal up so that if I draw kind of a mix of it, I can potentially play 2 spells in a turn, where if I had all Vanishing Verses, I wouldn't be able to. 3-drop slot, we've got 4 Righteous Valkyries, another mainstay of any Angel deck. Some Linvalas, which I'm dipping into blue. This is another thing that you get from Streets of New Capenna. You get access to this card, Raffine's Tower, which makes it more palatable to play a 3-color deck. So it's easy to add this Angel to your deck. You could have done it before, but the mana wouldn't have been quite as good, so it was maybe a little bit less appealing. Some Glasspool Mimics. Just to get some additional value out of the lands. This deck is playing 22 real lands plus 3 Glasspool Mimics and 2 Emeria's Calls, so 27 total lands. You definitely are going to be wanting to look to get some value out of your lands so you don't flood out. But as is the case with pretty much any deck you should be playing in Standard, I think if you don't put at least 25 lands in your deck when you start, you're really doing something wrong. You should be looking at how do I build a curve that wants to play 25 to 27 lands, because you know that you're going to be able to put enough value lands in your deck that you'll be able to get away with doing that. So I've said this before about like mono red decks where you're trying to play a bunch of 1-drops. It's not worth it. You can very easily play 25 to 27 lands and fit plenty of great spells at 3 and 4 mana that you're going to be very happy to cast, assuming you make your land drops on curve. And then if you wind up with a few extra lands, you're almost always going to have either lands that have cycling, lands that are spells, lands that can turn into creatures, lands that you can channel. Just there's no reason to be trying to skimp on lands in this standard. One additional new Streets of Capenna card. This is just a draft comment, honestly, but it is a 3-drop Angel that draws a card when it comes into play. I don't think you want a ton of these, but as a curb filler, it's fine. All the other cards in the 4-drop slots, cards that people will already be familiar with if you've been playing previous standards. So we've got Firja's Retribution, which is obviously a payoff for being an Angel deck. The Wandering Emperor, great 4-mana Planeswalker. Starnheim Unleashed, which is a way to make a lot of Angels. And a lot of standard games just come down to kind of value-based grinding, and the ability to potentially put, 3 Angels into play with this is going to come up some of the time. You're going to be very happy you have it there. Some Legion Angels. I've got 2 in my main deck, so obviously I've got the other 2 in my sideboard, which we'll get to in a second. Some Liesa, the Forgotten Archangels. This is a card that, if your opponent has the right removal for it, it's going to look really bad, but if they don't have the right removal for it, it's going to take over the game. So it's kind of a high-risk, high-reward 5-drop. I've been pretty impressed with it in other decks. I haven't tried this Angels deck out yet, but I do think it's going to be a strong card. And certainly with the ability to accelerate it into play with Giada, that's pretty appealing. One Elspeth Resplendent. This is another new card from Streets of New Capenna. So the main ability on this is the -3 ability that you're going to be looking to put 3 CMC or less permanent cards into play from your library. So here we've got Righteous Valkyrie as our main hit. We've also got Linvala. Potentially Glasspool Mimic is going to be an exceptional hit. Potentially, Youthful Valkyrie or Giada would be useful. You can also hit lands. And then we've got a +1 ability that you can give something lifelink, which is probably going to be the most appealing ability if you're in any sort of racing situation. Giving a large creature lifelink is a really big deal. Flying, not going to matter in this deck, really. First Strike, probably not going to matter. Vigilance, probably not going to matter. Then you've got this -7 ability, which gives you 5 3/3 white Angels, which that could be great in this deck. And it's really not that hard to get to the ultimate on this. It's going to happen in 3 turns if your opponent isn't interacting with your Elspeth. I think this is a strong card. I don't think it's as good as the Wandering Emperor. I want to try a mix of them, but I would definitely say you want to play your first copy of the Wandering Emperor before you're playing any copies of Elspeth. And probably the same thing with your second copy of the Wandering Emperor, and even potentially your third copy. Here I've got a 2-in-1 split. I don't feel strongly that's correct. It might be better to play a 3-0 split, but I'm trying Elspeth Resplendent. It's a new card. I want to see how it plays. And then 1 copy of this new 6-mana Angel, which is 5/5 flyer for 6. It comes into play with 2 shield counters. And when it attacks or enters the battlefield, you can remove a counter from it to get a 1/1 ground creature and draw a card. So this is kind of it's an Angel, which is why it makes a little bit of sense in this Angel deck. It is a card that's kind of a counters payoff, which this deck is not set up to take that much advantage of. This is really going to be kind of a 6-mana, 5/5 flying with a shield counter that draws a card and makes a 1/1 when it comes into play. It's really going to be how it plays. The lands, as I kind of touched on, we've got basically the usual suspects. We've got the new cycling land, then we've got a bunch of pathways, a bunch of these slow lands, and a bunch of the spell lands and some creature lands. So pretty much what you would expect from a mana base. Sideboard, a lot more of the usual suspects. We've got Legion Angels, like I said. You need to have those in your sideboard if you're playing some in the main deck. Some Disdainful Strokes, some Negates, some Raven Feeblements in case you're against White Weenie or against Runes. Some Duresses in case you're against a control deck. Some Negates, again, if you're against a control deck. And then we've also got this card, Rampage of the Valkyries, which is an Angel Tribal payoff. I don't have them in my main deck. I have them in the sideboard. This is a card that you're really only going to want if you're playing with someone who is playing creatures that it's going to, that them sacking a creature is going to have a big effect on the game. So you don't want to play this against somebody that's playing like a ton of like cheap token generation or not playing any creatures. If someone's actually really playing 3 and 4 mana creatures, that's where this card's going to shine. Otherwise, I think it's just a little bit too inefficient. So that's the deck. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to run it through another one of these traditional standard events just to see how it plays. So this is the new event structure. How do I... Where'd it go? Standard event. Traditional standard event. There we go. So 5,000 gold to join, and I can win up to 1,000 gems and 3 packs plus some play-in points. I said this in a previous video. I'm not sure that that's actually a return that makes that much sense for most people to be playing in. This is the second one of these I've tried. I'm trying to just get a feel for... It doesn't make sense for me. Which, it's... Whether or not it makes sense is going to depend really highly on, do you value the play-in points and do you value the packs? And I don't know what the right I don't know what the right answer is for anybody. I don't even know what it is for me. This looks like a very solid hand. One issue with this deck is that Giada does not help you cast Firja's Retribution. But this is a potentially very strong card. Strong curve. I've got 2-drop into 3-drop into 4-drop, and then I've got a Starnheim Unleashed if the game starts dragging out. So I'm going to need to draw my 4th land. I've got 2 more shots at it. If I whiff on it, it's going to be very sad. They may actually be playing mono red. That is a somewhat painful land to have drawn. It's going to come into play tapped. If I draw an untapped land next turn, it's not going to hurt me at all. But if I don't draw an untapped land, it's going to hurt me a fair amount. I'll be stuck with having to foretell my Starnheim Unleashed. Alright, I drew a different 3-mana play. I drew 1/4 of a Linvala. My deck is not capable of achieving a full party, so I cannot do the middle ability on this card. It's just sack to give your creatures hexproof or indestructible, and it's a 3/3 flying angel. It's like if they were going to do that, they should have done that on their turn. You could definitely imagine them just drawing into a Voltage Surge and wanting to kill the Righteous Valkyrie before I gain the 3 life and deal 2 damage to them. Gives hexproof or indestructible, so I can trade my Linvala for the activation of their Blood Tithe Harvester if that's what I'm in the market to do. Second chapter of this saga gives tap, destroy target creature with power or less than this creature's power to all of my angels. That's extremely potent. It works best with Vigilance Angels, which I only have one Vigilance Angel in play at the moment. Kind of expect them to try to kill it with their Blood Tithe Harvester. Well, let's see what they actually do. I'm going to attempt to give my creatures hexproof. And that worked, so that's good. Hopefully they don't have Meat Hook Massacre. If they do have it, there's nothing I really could have done about it. Okay, they do have it. That's very sad for me. It does have a lot of blood tokens. It's a little bit surprising they chose to cast the Tenacious Underdog. Oh, I see.
I'm the new boss.
Doesn't even seem that good for them.
Or die. Pleasure doing business with you. Go ahead. Plead for mercy.
I think I made a very minor mistake. You should generally kill the token before you kill the main Obnixilis, but I wasn't being careful. This is what I was talking about in deck building, that just having a bunch of flyers, you can actually pressure Obnixilis pretty effectively.
Guards, to me.
Second Liesa is not ideal. But Liesa is the kind of card that probably your opponent's going to have to kill it if they want to attempt to progress their board state in any way. So if I want to, I can play my second Liesa, the Legend rule, and the Liesa will just go back to my hand, the one that gets Legend ruled. So that'd be a way to gain 5 life because there's a Righteous Valkyrie in play. That is not a very efficient use of mana. Hopefully I'll be able to find something better to do with my mana.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Alright, so I'm getting punished because of that one turn where I said that I should have gone after the token rather than the real
Pleasure doing
Obnixilis. Here we get to see why it mattered.
Remember your training.
I got punished a little bit. I took an extra 2 damage, and they got to gain a few life because of that. Not really the biggest deal, though. I think they should be attacking the Wandering Emperor with their tenacious underdog.
May your blade strike true.
Wait, what happened to the tenacious underdog? Why did it... Does Liesa do something? Oh, Liesa stops it. That's nice. I forgot that Liesa did that. It's good interaction for me. Do I want any of these cards in my deck? Well, Vanishing Verse seems a little bit mediocre. Their deck is a lot of gold cards. Their mono-colored cards are not very appealing to destroy with removal spells. So maybe I do want a couple Duresses and Divine Smites. I guess Divine Smite is really what I want. Bloodchief's Thirst isn't that bad. It's good against the blood. What's the name of this card? The Blood Tithe Harvester. Yeah, let's just try it like that. This is not enough lands. Do I want to keep 2 Giadas in my hand? Or do I want to keep 1 Giada and 1 Liesa? I'll be optimistic and I'll keep only 1 Giada. Hope it doesn't die. Or if it does die, I'll hope I draw lands. Sadly, I drew my second Liesa, that has to be my worst possible draw step. Maybe the Sanctuary Warden would have been even worse. Both of those are just absolutely awful. It didn't die yet, though. So if they had Voltage Surge, they definitely would have cast it already. I'm going to get an attack in because my creature has Vigilance. And I think I'm going to tap it for mana so that I get the counter on the Righteous Valkyrie. I really only discarded 1 card. Wow. I would have thought, given that they weren't able to immediately kill the Giada, they would be looking to discard and dig deeper into their deck, but evidently they're very happy with their hand. I'm not sure I would be in their situation. So this is going to be an even bigger Righteous Valkyrie, and it's going to give me even more life. Oh, you know what? You don't have to tap this for mana to get the ability from the counters. There's no reason for me to be tapping this the way I have been. I was confused how this card worked. I've just been choosing to have it be tapped when there was no reason to. they trying to meat hook massacre me? I guess I'll just take it. Hope to draw an untapped land, so Liesa help me out. The underdog. Charles Mingus has an autobiography entitled Beneath the Underdog. I think I would recommend that people read it, but maybe not. You know what? I'm dealing less damage because I didn't play the Liesa first in combat. That was a misstep because I was thinking about the book Beneath the Underdog. Missed 2 damage. This doesn't seem like a reasonable attack. What's the plan here? Five, 6, 7. They can meat hook massacre for 7? That doesn't even do anything. Oh, it does do something. I didn't take into account the harvester. That was a pretty impressive showing. It's another turn to Giada. Backed up by a backup turn to Giada. Green-red lands. They're playing runes. It's a little bit scary. The third Giada was not the draw I was dreaming of. was already planning on double blocking this. It's less appealing to double block it now, but I think I still am going to do it. No longer going to double block it. They can't channel the Eiganjo off of Showdown of the Skulls, which is nice. I don't think it's going to matter, though. So should I block this? Probably. 9 damage. I can kill Giada and the big Valkyrie. I guess there was no need to throw the Giada in that block. I don't think there was really any coming back from this anyway. You can't afford to miss land drops while the rune deck is doing its thing. I have managed to get all 4 of the Rune of Mights into the graveyard. That's an accomplishment. Against runes, I like Duress, I like Ray of Enfeeblement. Rampage of the Valkyries might be fine too. Don't want Sanctuary Warden or Elspeth Resplendent. That's pretty easy no. This card seems pretty weak. These seem pretty weak as well. The only real question is, do I want Rampage of the Valkyries, which also seems pretty weak. I think I'm just going to go with this. Hoping they're going to put a rune on this, which they really shouldn't be interested in doing, but we'll see. Next turn, I'm going to want to fire off a Duress, because the card I most want to hit with Duress is Showdown of the Skulls. It's a little scary. A substantial capability to gain life in this deck. Come on, no more enchantments. It's an enchantment. It's a good enchantment, too. It's really hard to beat this rune stack if you don't draw much interaction, which I did not draw very much interaction in this game. Can I live? I go block, block, block. No, can't live. Dead. This is a really, really fast draw. My opponent can't interact with Giada. I forgot to attack. That's not some of my finest work. They whiffed on the land drop. Nice. Very, very nice. This is kind of crazy. It shouldn't be this easy to get that much power into play on turn 4. So there's some sort of green-black mid-range deck, I guess. Or not exactly a ramp deck, because they have all these eye twitches and shambling ghasts. I'm just going to have 2 Duresses in my deck and call it a day. I could have Divine Smite. Divine Smite's a little bit... Against their particular deck, Divine Smite seems like it's probably just a worse version of Vanishing Verse because they don't have any of the red, black, gold cards. I could have a Divine Smite in my deck, but I think that this Inspiring Overseer is probably fine. This is definitely not going to be anyone's idea of a great hand, but I hate mulliganing. So I'm going to give it a go. Come on, no, Seeker's Chariot. This is why you want to always play at least one basic land in any deck in this standard format. If they get a second Field of Ruin and they're willing to do that a second time, obviously it's going to be really bad for me. But usually people cannot afford to sink that much mana into just trying to knock you off your land. It's usually the first time that they do it that's the real problem. This is not a good attack. This is power less than this creature's power.
We can foster much growth here. Every seed contains great potential.
An eye twitch. So I can kill this Ren in 7 this turn. No. I want to let them learn before I reveal that I have a Vanishing Verse for this Tree Folk. If they have the card like Snakeskin Veil in their hand, it's going to be pretty sad for me. That'd be a kind of unusual card for them to have. Maybe they do have it. They could also have Infernal Grasp or something like that. Deadly Dispute.
We did not choose this fight.
Pretty unpleasant for me.
We prefer not to fight, but we also will not hold that trees can fight their own battles.
Children drench their hands in the blood of my enemies. My will cannot be denied.
I don't think I'm going to be able to win. 3 Lolth plus Ren in 7. Should probably just concede. Yeah. That one's over. Alright, I think I want Bloodchief's Thirst in my deck if they're playing with Ren and 7. I didn't really understand what their deck was. This draw is potentially very strong. If my Giada lives, it's going to be great. I hope they brick on their Shigeki again. That was great when that happened last time. Doesn't make really very much sense to try to duress the necrotic fumes out of their hand. If their turn was swamp, sack the Shigeki to necrotic fumes either of one of my creatures, I would be very happy with that outcome. Brick, brick, brick. Shown your deck is capable of it before. They bricked again. Wonder if they just don't have enough lands in their deck. Like this is, I'm playing with 27 lands and I've got 4 mana creatures, and here, this is just another hand where I'm kind of struggling to make my land drops. There's just really no reason to cheat on lands in this standard format. It's so hard to win if you miss your land drops and fall behind. And you just don't run out of stuff to do until very late in the game if you're playing a reasonable deck. Alright. Not a bad hand. Turn to Giada yet again. That's why you want to play 4. Another red-black deck. I wonder if my deck doesn't have enough white lands, or have white lands on the right. If I don't have the right mix of duels. Trying 2 Shipwreck Marshes is pretty undesirable. The Giada at least does tap for white for the purposes of casting this Liesa. Didn't enjoy that one. Gonna check them to see if they have a additional artifact to keep their anvil going. They do. Oh, and they hit another removal spell too. Lame. Really lame. Looks like they're probably going to miss their land drop unless they have a land in their hand. Come on, untapped white source. Not an untapped white source, at least not this turn. Maybe next turn. Alright, I've got one big thing. Let's see if they can beat it. They drew 3 Infernal Grasps. Really lame. I'm just dead. The Sokenzen Smelter activation. Actually played very few black creatures. I'm sure they have the Blood Tithe Harvester in their deck. That might be the only thing, though. Don't really have any cards like Lucky Offering that might be good in my sideboard. I think I am going to trim these for Duresses, though. I think their removal's a lot scarier than their creatures, probably. If I played turn 2 Giada every game, I may have. Certainly drawn it an awful lot. Do I want to just jam 2 of these? They're really big. Turn 3, I'm playing 2 3/5 flyers. That was a very strong start to the game. It'll be 4 6s when they attack. This is cast an angel. Angel honors the battlefield. So if I draw an untapped land, I'm just going to play Firja's Retribution, not the Valkyrie. I would assume they're going to kill the Giada. But realistically, it's going to be really hard for them just to keep up with this draw. They made it so their Blood Tithe Harvester can't even kill anything. Okay. They live unless I draw an untapped land. Okay, now they are guaranteed to live. Untapped land, please. Oh, it's not an untapped land, but it is very good. Just running it back? I think so. Continue to be fairly unimpressed by Vanishing Verse in this matchup. Is this a good hand? No. Is it a keepable hand? Maybe. I have this on turn 2, which doesn't even hit that much stuff from the deck. I do have this on turn 4, which is pretty good, though. Given that I drew yet another land, I think I'm probably going to wind up... Well, I may wind up wanting to cast the Mire's Call. Alright. At least I got to use my Vanishing Verse. It's actually pretty good in that spot. If I play the Righteous Valkyrie, they're definitely just going to Blood Tithe Harvester it. Given that I drew the Eiganjo, I think I might as well just trade a land for the Blood Tithe Harvester instead. That's really a spot where I get to choose, sort of, do I want to trade Righteous Valkyrie or land for Blood Tithe Harvester? And I think the answer is pretty clearly land when I have this many lands in my hand. Still kill my angel. It's weird. Why didn't they do this on their turn? They could have attacked. Depending on what I draw, I may want to Otawara my own Firja's Retribution. That's why I just put a stop in my upkeep. I'm going to go into full control mode in my upkeep to see my draw step, to see if there's a chance I want to Otawara the Firja's Retribution. Probably I'm not going to want to do it. I think the only way I would do it is if I just drew a land for the turn. But we'll see. Now I'll just play the Otawara so that if I draw my 7th land, I'll play Emeria's Call. This is the kind of game where my deck's going to lose, because I'm dying really quickly now to all these triggers, and I don't really have anything to interact with the anvils in my deck. I need to draw Liesa. Even that might not be enough. So they attack. I go to 5. They sack. Go to 4, go to 3, go to 1. I could be at 2. Does that help me if I draw Liesa? I don't think so, but... Seems pretty hopeless. I don't know if this Anvil style of red-black is going to prove to be an actually popular deck. I think the better versions don't play Anvil, but I don't think I have the right tools to win this matchup in my sideboard for sure. Well, if Youthful Valkyrie is good this game, it's going to be really good. If it's a bad card this game, my hand is really bad. I think I need to, given the way my hand looks, I think I need to just play Giada and hope that this Magda doesn't go too crazy. It's kind of hard to imagine how it's not going to go too crazy, but we can always hope. It's probably going to be a turn 3 Goldspan Dragon, though. If I'm really unlucky, it's going to be like turn 3 Goldspan plus a Seeketh's Chariot. Moonveil region. Alright. That I can maybe deal with. My Youthful Valkyries are going to be absolutely enormous next turn. Do people actually like Standard when it's this fast? It doesn't really appeal to me that the decks are this powerful.
Envy the strong, for they consume, we will slay our enemies.
If I decide to triple block one of these, the Moonveil Regent will be able to kill the Giada. I don't really anticipate them blocking in that fashion. Like, it's the end of my 4th turn. I have 22 power worth of flyers in play. This doesn't seem normal or desirable to me. Assuming they don't do anything too great next turn, these Valkyries aren't even going at the Loth anymore. I'm just sending all my creatures at them every turn. This does have reach, so I'm not able to just straight up kill them by getting the Moonveil Regent out of the way. They would take 17 currently. Maybe I should send 2 at the Loth. I guess 3 at the Loth, so it dies this turn. They would be able to minus it and just make 2 chump blockers. You're going to be able to get a dragon into play if they want with the Magda, which could be a Goldspan, it could be Ziatora. Whatever dragon they get is just going to be puny, though, relative to my gigantic angels. I guess they could have cards like Infernal Grasp in their deck, but if they don't, there's no way their red-green deck is going to beat a 9-10 Liesa. Grackle with power. Oh, does that actually do something? Is that enough? They killed me. Holy cow. They didn't even need the Snakeskin Veil. I can't believe I died this game. That's incredible. That was amazing. I would not have in a million years guessed I was going to die that turn. Do I want Disdainful Strokes in my deck? Maybe. This Elspeth has seemed too slow in all the games I've played. My deck is not very good at playing long interactive games. It's just you hope to get a bunch of flyers out before your opponent can do anything. A little bit awkward. All 3 of these lands would come into play if I played them as my 3rd land. This one, at least, if I draw running lands, I can get a little bit of value out of as the game goes on. I still can't believe I died in that first game. That was crazy. Sticky figures. When this deals damage to a player, you get a treasure token. When it dies, you draw a card. I think I'm fine with them getting another treasure token. I might want to kill it next turn. This thing's pretty annoying. Cat car. Good idea, opponent. Snakeskin Veil. Alright. Is that even good for them? Do they really want this thing to live that much? That they want to invest another card into it? I don't think so. Could be wrong. They're probably just setting up to kill me with Crackle with Power again. Every single dog does not mess around. You can only remove counters from creatures or planeswalkers you control. I have the Wandering Emperor in my deck, which is a pretty good answer to this. Hammerstorm Predator. Hopefully I can draw into one. I'm going to get a pretty steady stream of cards out of the Sanctuary Warden, which I'll be able to clone with the Glasspool Mimics, which is pretty nice. Just to clarify, I'm not actually playing against every single dog. There's a limited number of dogs that I'm playing against. Probably going to play this Firja's Retribution next. They didn't even grow their Predator. They've given up on that plan. That's pretty good for them. Probably not going to be good enough, but it was something at least. And next turn, all my angels are going to have double strike, and I think that would be the end of the game. Hoping it will be, at least. Sanctuary Warden was really good this game. Mostly because I drew 2 Glasspool Mimics with it. I do have Divine Smite in my sideboard, which could kill that thing. But it seems like they have very few black cards in their deck, so I don't think I want Divine Smite in my deck. Calling Ritual. It would have been good against the draw I had in game 1. Not so much against my army of Sanctuary Wardens. So this spot where Rampage of the Valkyries is good. It might be better than Starnheim Unleashed. Let's try it out. It's another way to maybe get an Immerstorm Predator off the board. This is another one. So if I want access to black mana on turn 2, I can't play the Cave and the Glasspool Mimic untapped, which is pretty annoying. I think I want access to black mana more than I want to be able to play this on turn 3. Especially in a game when I'm on the draw, you want to make sure you can play your interaction more than your aggressive cards, I would say. Okay. It's not that scary. See if we can get a little bit of Retribution. Some Retribution going on. They also had Culling Ritual in their deck for game 2, which their deck has a lot of cheap cards. It seems like Culling Ritual could easily not work out very well. And kind of in that last game, they probably had it in their hand for a long time, and it just kind of stunk. Sticky Fingers, huh? Yet again with the sticky fingers. Not that I care that much about this thing hitting me. I think I'm just going to play the Righteous Valkyrie. I care a little bit more about them getting a bunch of treasures. I'm really hoping that I draw an untapped land next turn. Ugh, that card is... that's a problem. untapped land. Still hoping for that untapped land. I like that they're chewing through all their treasures. If their play this turn is just hit me with a creature land, that's fine. Magda's a little bit scary. I could maybe attack for 2 here. I don't know that it's worth attacking for 2 when if they draw a removal spell, it would open me up to a pretty good counterattack, I would say. Next turn, I'll be able to play at a minimum the Righteous Valkyrie. I might be able to go Giada into Righteous Valkyrie. If I draw an untapped land, the elusive untapped land I've been looking for so long. From that point, my creatures are going to be enormous. And it's going to take something incredible for them to win, which they had the incredible Crackle with Power in game 1. I don't want to just sit here forever and lose to another top decked Crackle with Power. Or even, they are generating a treasure a turn, so they're getting like a 5th of a dragon every turn we sit around. That is not an untapped land. That does not make me happy. So they are going to probably be able to attack in a way that drops me below, what is it, 27? If it can't kill anything, then this gains 9 life. So I'll probably be back above 27 after that. If I draw a land, this would give me 12 life. I think that does enough. It dealt 2 damage to them. Yeah, it definitely didn't do enough. I've never seen this card Sticky Fingers before. I don't think it's good, but I also don't think it's unbelievably bad. Oh, they're getting a dragon. Alright, that's something. They're still probably dead on board. I guess if they have Zeatora, they still die. Because even sacking the Lair of the Hydra doesn't do anything. Alright, 3 and 2 with this deck. Not great, not awful. I lost to Runes, which the Runes matchup is you could maybe have more in the sideboard for. Also lost to Oni Called Anvil, which I guess you could pick to have more in the sideboard for that matchup also. But both of those are going to be matchups where you probably want to have a lot of cards, and given that you're an Angel, like a Tribal Synergy deck, it's hard to have a lot of cards for a bunch of matchups in your sideboard, so those are... You probably can't choose to be good in both of those spots. Hope you guys enjoyed that video. I would say that Angel's deck looked solid. I don't think it's one of the top contenders for being the best deck in Standard. It's a little bit too one-dimensional for my tastes. But if you're a fan of the Angels, I think you'll find that it's a pretty powerful deck. And as we saw, I had a bunch of really, really strong draws throughout the course of the event. It's just a matter of I wasn't playing with a ton of interaction, because I think for the most part interaction in Standard is pretty bad. It's just better to be proactive, sadly. And I think that the Angel deck, it's just a little bit... Your really good draws are really strong, but like your slightly weaker draws where you don't exactly play everything on curve are a little bit worse than most of the other decks, I would say. Anyway, hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more Standard videos for Streets of New Capenna Standard. Catch you next time.